What's up, guys? It's three-time NFL Pro Bowler, all-decade return specialist, Josh Cribbs. I want to welcome you to the College Sports Connection podcast, where Double A, Alex, and AJ host the Mid-American Conference Best.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the College Sports Connection podcast. I'm your host, Alex the Captain. Joining me, as always, it's AJ the Guru.
What's going on, everybody?
AJ, welcome back. We are amazingly at the end of the season. We have one more regular season game left for each of these MAC squads, and then the MAC championship, and then it's bowl season. Hard to believe it's already here.
Went through quick. It's hard to believe we're the middle of November already. Next week's Thanksgiving, so we are moving right along. And on the topic of postseason play, University of Toledo locked up the MAC West Championship last week with their win over Ball State, coupled with the Northern Illinois upset of Western Michigan. Still waiting on the East to be decided. Opportunity for a three-way tie between Buffalo, Bowling Green, and Ohio. Pretty wild scenarios there. If they are all tied at the end of the regular season, Buffalo would represent the MAC East. In Detroit, but a little bit of chaos has to happen for that. But we're not here to talk about that today. We are here to talk about postseason implications, what teams could go to what bowl, which teams could become bowl eligible, and who might be left at home. Should be exciting to talk about. Should be. When we've had I can't remember the last time the American Conference was this competitive at the end of the season. Toledo didn't lock it up until last week, and the East is still undecided. So that's going to go down to the wire. It's going to be interesting. It hasn't happened in a while, so it'll be fun to pay attention to.
Yeah, absolutely, especially with bowl implications and, obviously the MAC championship on the line for three East squads. I think that's what it has impressed me the most is that until Bowling Green won yesterday, Kent State was very much alive in the MAC East, which is just absolutely mind-blowing. But let's flip over to the postseason. So as most people know, the MAC has 6 contracts. The way the bowl season works, for those who don't know at home, you have affiliates for each conference. Each conference has a contract with different bowl games at various locations. The MAC has 6 current contracts with 6 bowl games. Those are the Bahamas Bowls versus Conference USA, the Camilla Bowl versus the American Athletic or the Sun Belt, the the famous Idaho Potato Bowl versus the Mountain West out in Boise, Idaho, the Barstool Arizona Bowl versus the Mountain West, the Lending Tree Bowl versus the Sun Belt, and the Quick Lane Bowl, the one right up the road from us, versus the Big Ten up in Detroit. Now, there are also 5 other group of 5 conference bowl games that the MAC can get 2 spots of if they have enough eligible teams. The Cure Bowl would be versus a group of 5 or Army. The Myrtle Beach Bowl versus the American Athletic or the Sun Belt. The New Mexico Bowl versus Conference USA. Roofclaim.com Boca Raton Bowl. Man, that's a mouthful. That one's had a few names over the years. That's versus other group of 5. And then the Tropical Smoothie Cafe Frisco Bowl, which is played down in Frisco, Texas, against the group of 5. And yes, that name sounds familiar. In 2021, Miami played in the Frisco Football Classic, which was played at the same field as the Frisco Bowl. It's just the city decided to host 2 bowl games to help with all eligible teams. So there are upwards of 11 bowl games that the MAC could potentially participate in, 6 guaranteed, assuming numbers are there. We only have 4 teams in the MAC who are eligible right now, and that is Ohio at 8-3, Toledo at 7-4, BG at 6-5 with their big win over Toledo last night, and EMU at 7-4. Their result versus Kent State just went final, 31-24. We got a couple border participants. Buffalo, who is not only still alive in the MAC East race, but they just need one win to get to bowl eligibility. They're sitting at 5-5 Akron and Kent State left on their schedule. Ball State, they are 5-6. They need to beat Miami this next week in order to make it to bowl eligibility. So there's 6 right there.
That'll be 3 years in a row for Ball State too, which has never been done.
3 years in a row after winning the 2020 MAC championship, obviously making a bowl game last year, and then heck of a bounce back after a season. Drew Plitt left in the offseason. A lot of people thought Ball State was not going to be great this year, and I wouldn't say they were great, but they were competitive all year.
Sure.
I don't think wins and losses always tell the tale. I think Ball State was in a lot of games that they had no business being in, and I mean they made teams earn those victories.
And it doesn't seem that long ago they came back and beat UConn.
Yeah, that was just like 5 weeks ago.
Yeah, something like that.
So, and then other teams who are still in the mix. Central Michigan is still in the mix. If they can close out against Western Michigan tonight in the Snow Bowl up there in Mount Pleasant, and if they beat EMU next week, they could finish 6-6 with bowl eligibility. And then Miami, an opportunity to finish with bowl eligibility. They have to beat NIU tonight, and then they have to beat Ball State next week. So potential for up to 8 teams. However, Ball State or Miami will eliminate one or the other. So really, we only have 7 teams who could make it to the postseason this year for the Mid-American Conference.
Yeah, Miami of Ohio just kicked a field goal to extend their lead 29-23 up into DeKalb against NIU, and then Western and Central is still tied at 7.
Big barn burner up there in Mount Pleasant, right?
Middle of the third quarter.
When you're covered in all that snow, it makes sense.
Sure.
But let's kind of talk about this. I know that this was a topic you wanted to bring up, and kind of discuss. So let's talk about who's going to go where. Let's say that we just get we get all 7 in, right? Let's say that Ball State or Miami's that last one. Let's say Buffalo gets in. So we've got Ohio, Toledo, BG, EMU, Buffalo, and then Ball State, Miami, and Central Michigan. So some combination of those 8 teams to get us to 7. Let's start off with the Bahamas Bowl. That's obviously a very, very popular bowl game with the MAC. It's also one of the earliest. I think it is the earliest. And this one would be Conference USA. Last year, Toledo played in that, lost 24-17 against Middle Tennessee. Who are you putting in there?
Oh, man. You look at it, and that whole being the first bowl game, it's like the first bowl game by like a week or something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty early. It's something like December 16th or something.
Right, which is brutal. So I mean, I think you kind of look at that. I think that's a game where maybe OU goes down to, an OU versus Conference USA. Who's tough in the Conference USA this year? Maybe, man.
Yeah, it's tough, right? I mean, there's so many. Toledo made that game last year at 7-5. So I would have to guess they're probably not going to send the MAC champion there. That's my first guess. You're not going to send your league's champion to that game, not because it's not a great game, but because you want to get a champion versus champion kind of bowl game. And Conference USA is not going to send their conference champion to the Bahamas.
Yeah. Because as of now, there's only 3 Conference USA teams that are eligible for bowl games. University of Texas San Antonio, Western Kentucky. Oh no, only 2. Excuse me, only 2. Because UAB, they're 5-5, and they play LSU this weekend, who's 8-2. So yeah, you have University of San Antonio, Texas, or University of Texas San Antonio, and then Western Kentucky. Then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 teams sitting there at 5-5.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think UAB is beating LSU.
No, I don't think they are.
You look at FAU, they're 5-5. Middle Tennessee State, they're 5-5. That'll be a really good one on Saturday. Then you go down to FIU and UTEP, they're 4-6, so they're out.
Yep.
And then Rice, they play University of Texas San Antonio. They're sitting there 5-5 versus 8-2. I mean, this is interesting. I think Middle Tennessee State gets in because they historically do have a fairly decent program.
Yeah. I like that for Middle Tennessee. Out of the MAC, I think for me that's where my question is. I think you look at these teams. Obviously, I'm going to probably unsafely assume Ohio will make it to the MAC championship game. They'll play Toledo, so it'll be Ohio at 9-3, Toledo at 8-4. So I'm going to just eliminate those two right away. They're not going to send the conference runner up. They're probably going to send somebody a little bit lower. So if Ohio wins against BG next week, that puts BG at 6-6, Buffalo at 6-6, 7-5, Ball State or Miami at 6-6, and then Central Michigan. I think you send Miami south.
Miami could go, yeah.
If I'm having a hand in this, I'm going to send Miami to take on Middle Tennessee. Sure, Middle Tennessee was there a year ago, but we see teams repeating bowl games all the time. Toledo did it a few years ago, where they were in the Dollar General Bowl in back-to-back years. So it's hard
to pick a team from the East because nobody knows anything over there right now.
Exactly. We have so many teams who are still eligible, but also of those teams, at least one of them could finish below 500, which is nuts to think about. So Buffalo is the one who could absolutely finish below 500. They're not going to lose to Akron. That's not going to happen, but anything's possible. Like, it could absolutely happen. And then Miami, sure, they're winning right now in DeKalb, but if NIU somehow pulls it out, Miami's sitting at 4-7 and out of the bowl picture. So it's just, you're absolutely right. The East is so tough. But if it is me and Miami does sneak in and become bowl eligible, I think I'm sending Miami down to the Bahamas.
Sure. Yeah, because when you look at the kind of overall records here in the East, OU 6-1, BG 5-2, Buffalo 4-2. This is in conference. Kent 3-4, Miami of Ohio 2-4, and Akron 0-6, which was kind of a surprise this year. I really thought they'd be a little bit better. But then overall, you look at OU's 8-3, BG 6-5, Buffalo 5-5, which they've kind of turned it on here in the past couple of weeks too. Started playing really good ball since we saw them at Eastern about a month ago. Kent's 4-7.
Kent's out, yeah.
Yeah, Miami of Ohio 4-6, and then of course Akron down there at 1-9. So the East is obviously, the West is already taken care of, but the East is still a coin flip between four schools really.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
So are we agreeing there? Let's slot Miami. I would say Miami or Ball State there.
Yeah.
As the kind of the team who had finished kind of at the bottom of the possibility for the MAC to make a bowl game. But I think Miami or Ball State goes to the Bahama Bowl. Who are you putting in the Camilla Bowl? This was a game last year where Ball State played. They played Georgia State, I believe. Yeah. And that was a 51-20 ball game in favor of Georgia State.
Yeah, so I think whoever doesn't go to the Bahamas goes to this one.
Okay. So if because obviously Ball State and Miami both can't be bowl eligible. One of them is going to eliminate the other. Yeah. So, I guess we move up the totem pole and assume Central Michigan wins out.
Right.
Who you put in? CMU or BG?
Probably BG, now that I think about it.
Okay, you're going to send BG down there?
Yeah.
Okay. I like that pick. I think BG, there's such a wild card this year. They'll have a bad loss, and then they'll go out and be world beaters. We saw it earlier this season where they beat they lost to EKU in 7 overtimes, an FCS school. Then the very next week they come out and beat Marshall. Yeah,
who had just beaten Notre Dame.
We saw them lose 40-6 last week to Kent State. Then they come into the Glass Bowl and beat Toledo last night, 42-35. So it's just, when they're on, or at least the offense is. But when they're not, it's bad. But I like the BG pick. I really like that pick. I'm gonna go Central Michigan. I like CMU there, just to kind of give them a new environment.
Yeah, and they're up 10-7 right now.
Oh, they're up 10-7. Okay, so CMU is on its way to becoming bowl eligible. A slim margin, but hey, it could be enough up there in Mount Pleasant tonight, up 10-7. So we're pretty consensus on Bahama Bowl, Miami or Ball State, whoever that last team is. You're going BG. I'm going CMU for the Camilla Bowl. Let's move down the list. We've got the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. Now, this is where it gets interesting. I think there are 3 bowl games the MAC champion will get assigned to, or could get assigned to. And I think it's the Potato Bowl, the Arizona Bowl, or the Quick Lane Bowl. I think those are the 3 you're going to send an 8 or a 9 or 10 win MAC champion to.
Yeah, because I mean, when Ball State won the MAC, they went to the Barstool Bowl.
Yep.
But when it comes to which one we're talking about, the famous Idaho Potato Bowl,
Yeah,
I think that's
one.
I think that's EMU right now.
EMU, okay. I like the EMU pick. Yeah, I mean Chris Creighton, he's done a great job up there at Eastern Michigan, getting them to yet another 7-win season. I mean, I know a lot of expectations up there are, when are we going to go to a MAC championship? But Chris Creighton's kind of, even at 6-6, 7-5 seasons, like that's a lot more than what Eastern's been able to kind of really get in the last few years. So
that is, yeah.
I think that this is a good pick for them. I really like. I'm assuming Buffalo wins out. I really like Buffalo in this game. Blue helmets, blue jerseys on a blue turf, a little bit of Boise State action there. I think that would look really, really cool. So for me, I'm going to put Buffalo there. Just because you mentioned earlier, Buffalo's really turned it on late this year. They've had some really great games where they're still in contention for the division. So, 1 win and they're bowl eligible. So I like Buffalo there, but I do think that EMU or Buffalo are a really good choice.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Lending Tree Bowl. This is against the Sun Belt once again. This one could be interesting. For me, I'm just going to go right off the rip here. I'm just going to assume it's Toledo or Ohio winning the MAC championship. So I'm just going to put that asterisk into the universe. Obviously, we know Toledo is going to do no worse than the runner-up for the MAC championship, as they are the team who is already in the game. So I'm just going to go. They're going to send the runner-up to a Lending Tree Bowl.
Yeah, so, I agree.
So I'm going to say it's either Toledo or Ohio, whoever is the MAC runner-up. So I'm just going to put in MAC runner-up for my pick.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Okay, so.
Yeah, because I think that the champion ends up going to the Barstool Bowl.
That's what I was going to say. Barstool Bowl. Obviously, we have a potential for up to 4 different teams who could win. I think so. Toledo, OU, BG, or UB, whoever could win the MAC championship, absolutely goes to the Barstool Bowl and probably takes on the Mountain West champion, whoever that may be. I know when Ball State played in that, it was San Jose State.
Yep, and they beat them. Yeah.
And Ball State took care of business in that one. So I like that.
Here we go. Central just muffed a punt and Western recovered.
No way.
Yeah. On the plus side, yeah.
So hold off on placing your bets on Central Michigan, folks. Don't start punching your tickets to the Camilla Bowl just yet. Yeah, But so this one's the fun one. This is back to Detroit, the Quick Lane Bowl. So you've used Miami, Ball State, BG, EMU, the MAC runner-up, and the MAC champ. Who are you putting in the Quick Lane Bowl?
I think Buffalo.
You think Buffalo? Okay.
Yeah.
That wouldn't be a bad one at all. That'd be their first trip to Detroit since their last MAC championship appearance in 2020. So I don't hate that pick.
Is it always the Big Ten? Because last year when we went, it was Nevada.
So it's normally the Big Ten, and I was looking at this the other day, and I'll pull it back up. And just to kind of get it. So get it to pull up here. So it has been a weird amalgamation of it. So in 2014, it was Rutgers versus North Carolina. 2015, it was Minnesota versus Central, so MAC Big Ten. Then it was Boston College, Maryland in 2016, so Big Ten and ACC. Then Duke, Northern Illinois, so that was the ACC again.
Yep.
And then the Big Ten versus the ACC. And then it was the ACC versus the MAC in Pittsburgh versus Eastern Michigan. 2020, It was canceled. and then 2021 Western Michigan versus Nevada. But it looks like the tie-in is so the Quick Lane Bowl announced a secondary tie-in with the MAC in 2014.
Gotcha.
But it looks like there was a 6-year deal signed in 2014 between the Big Ten and the ACC, but then the MAC signed a secondary tie-in. But it looks like it's now a primary MAC bowl game.
Got it. It seems like in history, I mean, of all bowl games, there's always been a MAC versus Big Ten somewhere.
And it's usually in Detroit, because prior to it being the Quick Lane Bowl, it was the Little Caesars Pizza Bowl, and then prior to, and that was played in the Pontiac Silverdome from 97 to 2001, and then up till 2013. Now it looks like the tie-in, the Sun Belt was the alternate for the Little Caesars Pizza Bowl. But yeah, that the Motor City Bowl is what it was known as from. So it looks like it was called the Little Caesars Bowl from 2009 to 2013. Prior to that, it was the Motor City Bowl from 98 to 2008. And then prior to that, for 1 year, it was the Ford Motor City Bowl.
Ford Motor City Bowl, right. Huh. Talk about some serious name changes in one place.
Right. Well, and you talk about the tie-ins. Yeah, it was initially a MAC Big Ten tie-in. But what's interesting is the very first one, Ole Miss played Marshall. Then Marshall played Louisville. Then Marshall played BYU. Then Marshall played Cincinnati. Then Toledo played Cincinnati. Boston College played Toledo. And then our first MAC Big Ten matchup comes in 2003, where Bowling Green beat Northwestern. Then it goes back to just the MAC playing Connecticut in 2005. 2006, and I always forget about this. I was at this game. I don't think I've ever told you this. I was at this game. So our high school football coach had gotten tickets to this game just as for the team or whatever. And a bunch of the players did not do well with grades. So he gave them to the chaplain, who was my pastor at the time. And my pastor took a bunch of us from church.
Nice.
And we went to this bowl game, and it was Dan Lefevre.
Yeah.
For Central Michigan playing against Middle Tennessee. So there's a little fun history for you. But it looks like there were not a lot of MAC versus Big Ten matchups. In fact, it looks like there were just 3. The MAC played in that game 17 times. The Big Ten played in it 3. So for it originally being a Big Ten tie-in, didn't do much on the Big Ten tie-in side.
No, not at all. No.
But I digress. So we can, so Quick Lane Bowl. I like that idea of putting
Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo in that game. I don't disagree with that at all. For me, I think they keep it close to home, and I think that they probably put. I think we're just going to flip the Potato Bowl. I'm going to go Eastern Michigan. Give Eastern a chance at a big home crowd. I mean, that's what they did with Western.
We saw that with Western. Yeah, that was great.
So, I mean, whoever the MAC puts in is going to have a solid crowd.
Sure.
And will probably have a better crowd than their opponent, unless it's a Big Ten opponent.
Right.
So I like those picks for the Quick Lane Bowl. And then we've got, let's just say, one team left. Well, we've got the runner-up of the Big Ten, or of the MAC, would go to the Lending Tree Bowl. So then we've got some amalgamation. I think you have BG left. No, I have BG left, and you have CMU left.
Yeah. I'm watching the Western game right here, and it says BG is full eligible for the first time since 2015.
Yep, it's their first bowl game since
Yeah.
2015. You didn't really need to remind me of that. I'm still dealing with that loss from
Then
last night.
Eastern Michigan's 4-0 on road. MAC games 3-0 at home.
Yep. Well, no, the Eastern Michigan can't be 3-0 at home.
0-3.
0-3. Okay, okay. I was like, wait a minute. We watched Buffalo beat them, but the last bowl game, so they get one other tie-in. I think probably the Boca Raton Bowl,
Mm-hmm.
and
That's
that's going
another
to be
early
versus
one.
that's another early one, and I think that's going to be a group of 5. For me, this is where BG goes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming since Central is your last one on the list, I probably Central Fusion.
Central. Yeah. Yep.
Oh, cool. I mean, I like it. I think that's a pretty solid list. And I mean, could be some really good games. You know, obviously we can speculate on their opponents, but I think just slotting those teams in at those places, it benefits everybody because part of the requirement, quote unquote requirement, is the top ranked MAC champion will be in the mix for the Cotton Bowl if it's the highest ranked G5 champ, which it won't be. I'm sorry. It looks like UCF or Tulane is going to have that locked up, but the crazy thing is the MAC doesn't have a pecking order anymore. There's no, it's always based off the best possible games in geography, and I think geography should have more weight because you're going to get more fans, which are going to be more money for that city, more tickets sold, whatever. There aren't going to be a lot of MAC fans who are going to go out to the Arizona Bowl, which is a great bowl, but you're going to get far more people up in Detroit or down in Mobile, Alabama versus Arizona. That's just, to me, that's just what I think.
Right.
But
yeah, it's interesting. We're coming up here a couple weeks already. I mean, that first game is Bahamas Bowl is, gosh, less than a month away.
Yeah, it's insane. And then
because my championship is the December 3rd. I think the bowl game is like next week.
It's something like that. Well, I think it's the week after because the Army Navy game is the only game the following week.
That's right. Which I will be at, which I'm excited about.
Sure. But then there's that, and then the Lending Tree Bowl is down in Mobile, Alabama. So this is the old Gold Daddy Bowl, the old, that one's December 17th. So that's also another early one.
And that's a MAC schools in it as well. So
yeah, that one's a big MAC one. So that one's a fun one. Liberty beat Eastern Michigan last year in that one. Malik Willis was the QB for Liberty in that game. And
I remember when I was at Ball State, I think it was Arkansas State beat Ball State down there in like 2013 or something like that.
That sounds right. I remember watching Toledo win that game against, well, ironically enough, Arkansas State. Kareem Hunt tied a bowl game record with 5 rushing touchdowns.
That's right.
And Toledo put on an offensive clinic that day. It was pretty impressive to watch. But yeah, so I think that's going to do it for us. Obviously, any thoughts on this?
A lot to be determined here in the next couple of days.
I'm sorry.
A lot to be determined here in the next couple of days.
Yeah, a lot to be determined. The MAC East could be narrowed down to a 2-horse race as early as Saturday. Highly unlikely, given Buffalo's opponent on Saturday, but it's the MAC. Anything can happen, right? So I think, again, there's a lot of things that could be up in the air. Bowl eligibility, divisional title implications. We could very well be watching the de facto MAC East championship with Bowling Green and Ohio next week, and that should be a fun one.
Yeah. And then another fun thing this week is I will be attending the Air Force Colorado State game here at Air Force. So the wife and I will be there for that one. That'll be a lot of fun. This is our first game not doing action. I want to get some Mountain West action down here. The Air Force team was actually pretty good. Won the Commanders Cup this year. And Colorado State, I think it's like 2 or 3 wins, like 3-7 or something like that, 2-7, something along those lines. But that should be a lot of fun over the academy. I'll be honored this year to watch all 3 service academies play. Got this week, and then here in a few weeks, I'll be going to Philadelphia for Army Navy. And
a rare opportunity for sure. And that should be a lot of fun. Like you mentioned, all the academies, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, Air Force's facility is really cool too. I've taken just a quick drive around it and walked around. It'll be a lot of fun to check that out. And and to watch some football, some teams that I've never seen before, and two teams that we can add to our list of places we've covered. So it'll be fun.
Two teams we can add to the list, and teams we may see our MAC programs match up against in bowl games.
Sure.
So
sure,
that'll be fun.
Yeah, and then next year I'll go up to Boulder and then do the same thing with Colorado.
There you go. It'll be perfect. But yeah, I mean, this week in action, obviously, some crazy action. Both of us left a little disappointed. Looks like Miami just went final. Miami just beat Northern Illinois 29-23. So Miami and Ball State are playing for bowl eligibility next weekend.
That'll be a fun one.
That'll be a fun one and a rivalry game. So that'll be
the Redbird, and that's at Miami too.
Yep, at Miami. So that's going to be a really good one. That'll be one to keep our eyes on. But
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, this is a good week of action, high scoring. There were over 20,000 people at the Toledo game last night in the wind, the rain, the snow. That was cool. So
I had a few friends in Muncie, and it was not 20,000, maybe 20.
I looked up the numbers for Muncie.
Yeah, it was cold, wet, rainy.
Yeah.
And they didn't take the camera off the field. So
no, the numbers I saw, which I 100% blame the weather on, under 8,000.
Yeah.
So that was brutal.
And it's interesting too, because like for student parking, it's in the grass. So nobody wants to drive through there.
No.
And it's probably a good, if you're going to walk from campus to the stadium, it's a good 20 minutes, half hour, depending on how you get there.
Sure. Well, and that's the other thing too, right? Is a lot of these MAC stadiums are pretty much on campus, whereas Ball State is one of the ones that's a little furthest out. Them and Eastern, and then Kent State. You have to actually physically drive to the stadium. It's like a 3 or 4 minute drive.
Yeah.
So that's tough.
That's tough to do on a Wednesday night when you've got homework and it's cold and rainy out.
A little bit.
We've been that student before. So
we've been that student. We pushed off the homework a little bit, but we've been that student.
Absolutely. Well, let's see here. Central's got the ball and they're driving. Under 15 minutes to go here. It's 10-7. And looks like they're going to tackle in the backfield and make it 3rd and 8 probably. So
okay.
I have no idea which way. Yeah, I have no which way the direction is going of the wind, but they're rocking those military helmets tonight with the yellow stripe down the middle.
Those look cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, those look super cool. But cool. Well, I'm going to go finish watching that game.
Yep. Get
out of here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Sorry for being a little MIA last week. Just both got really busy with stuff. AJ moved out west, as you guys are all aware. So just trying to get our schedules resynced is a little tough because, well, we're both busy people. We both have lives.
Exactly.
So just trying to figure that out. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. And I guess we'll see you guys next week, probably and hopefully in preparation for a MAC championship.
Absolutely.
So thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next week.
See ya.